Hello there, and welcome to the Dear Dyslexic podcast series, brought to you by Rethink Dyslexia, the podcast where we're breaking barriers and doing things differently. I'm Shae Wissell, your host, and I'm so glad you can join us. I'm a fellow neurodivergent, and I'm coming from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, where I live and work. And I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to all the tribes across our beautiful country and to all First Nations people listening today. Our podcast was born in 2017 out of a need to give a voice to the stories and perspectives of adults with dyslexia. And our voice has grown stronger year after year. We're now a globally listened to podcast with guests from all around the world. Join us for insightful conversations about living with dyslexia and other neurodivergences across all walks of life. Our special focus is on adult education, employment, social and emotional wellbeing, and entrepreneurship. We're excited to be bringing you this episode and invite you to like and follow us, or even better, why not leave us a review on your favourite podcast platform. So let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hobo CEO, though I feel like this podcast is actually going to have to be distributed across both the Hobo CEO and the Dear Dyslexic podcast show, because the topics we're going to discuss today are relevant across both audiences. And so cross-sharing, I think, will be very helpful for all of our listeners today. And Raffy and I have been talking now for about 15 minutes, and I kept saying we have to start recording because this is gold conversation. So Raffy is here today, and we're going to be talking about inclusive practices in our small business, and also what drives us as businesswomen. I was very, very privileged and fortunate to meet Raffy through the Fempire program, and we've stayed in touch, and I've watched Raffy just go from strength to strength in the last 18 months since I've known her. She is a super powerhouse of the ACT, an amazing leader and a very kind, caring, passionate woman, and I'm really excited to have you on the show. So thank you for giving up some time today to talk to me, Raffy, about all the amazing work you're doing.
I'm honoured, Shae. I really love your work, and I think it's a good time to start to walk the walk and not just talk the talk, I think.
We met through the Fempire program, and I think when we first met, you were just starting to get, would it have been your second or third business off the ground?
Yeah, I was actually, and this is actually all linked to the inclusive and diverse workplace. So to give you a little bit of background about me, so I've been in the automotive industry for the past 20 years with my husband. And so personally, I'm just a mum of two and also a full-time carer of a Down syndrome, my brother-in-law. And it was always like one of my big passion is to create it, not just a business for profit, but just a purpose for profit. So I was always well driven into, okay, how can I use my business to actually making good? And now that we're coming into obviously turning nearly 20 on my business, my auto mechanic business, I thought I need to create something that I can continue on with my passion, which is to how can I actually empower other businesses to do what we did. And that was the journey with Fempire, which was creating my business coaching services. And so that's how Sage Advice came to life, which is, mind you, I came into the program with a big vision and I thought that I had everything mapped out, and I'm so grateful that I actually met all of you and Marnie from Fempire, because that gave me a little bit of a more clarity and structure. So we basically dismantled Sage completely to the ground and rebuild it. And now the biggest focus for us is actually to create a toolbox, a physical toolbox for the employer of either sole trader or like a small to medium businesses to actually be inclusive.
So exciting, and I can't wait to unpack that more. But originally you were from Italy?
Yes, I'm originally from Milan, and Milano. It's been 24 years now that I've been here. In last April was 24, so I've been more in Australia than in Milan. And again, I think it was always that insatisfaction for me to be in a place that he couldn't really use my potential to do good. So Australia was just 24 years ago, as you know, was like the boom. So it was really the lucky country. You could reinvent yourself. And again, always with the same objective, creating something, for me to succeed in business, but also to have that purpose. And it's always been a passion of mine, helping others.
I only bring up the Italian component because my nonno was from Sicily and we've still got family in Roma.
Yeah.
I love going back to Italy. It always feels like a second home, which is really weird to say, but there's something about it that I go, yes, this is my home.
Yeah, it's heritage, isn't it? I'm always saying that. Someone said to me, even recently, oh, don't you miss home? And I'm like, yeah, I do. But I'm always saying, I'm using this comparison. For me, Italy and Milan is my mother. So obviously gave me birth and learn, teach me all the values and the right things, I guess. And then you got Australia, that is a little bit like my mother-in-law. So he accept me, loved me, get to know me. But you always got that sort of like, your roots are there. So I guess I will be always Italian at heart.
That's a really nice metaphor, isn't it? I really love that. Yeah, and it's nice to hear that Australia has loved you and welcomed you, and you've been able to grow an amazing business here. And automotive industry is not well known for female leaders.
No, we proud ourselves to actually include so one of our same marketing slogan is actually that I'm creating a different workshop, which is less black, more green, and lots of splash of pink. So in the last 3 years, we really focusing on sustainability. So we became very strong in waste minimisation in our industry. And as you know, it's very hard to sort of classify that as less black, but we try very hard. And also I'm very proud, very proud to have a lot of girls coming and doing ASPA programs and the school holiday experience. We currently have about 4 girls doing a rotation on school holiday, and we have a couple of apprentices. They are female, so we're really proud of that.
Yeah, one of my goddaughters wants to move into this space. And as you were talking, I was like, oh, I'll have to send her up to Canberra.
Yeah. Oh, they're fantastic. It's the passion. And you know what? They're creating the big change in the industry, because until now, obviously, it was very male-dominated industry, and it's been always hard, but I think having that little bit of a female brain is actually create a good balance, and it's actually increasing your productivity as well. So
yeah, and I think we're seeing it in, like road construction and all male-dominated industries. Women are starting to move in. And I think hopefully in time we see the flip where we have more men in female-dominated industries.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's all about, and this is why for me it's very important to, when we say an inclusive and diverse workplace, it's such a broad word, isn't it? Like it's not just about the different ability, but it's also like creating that synergy where you can see a lot of female thriving and picking up industry that saying up to a few years ago was like oh no, that's not for a girl. So but yeah, we try our best.
What was the driving factor for you to have an inclusive and diverse lens within the motor industry? Was it because there was a lack of women or lack of diversity in colour and culture? And at Rethink Dyslexia, we are doing things differently. As a global leader in creating inclusive environments for adults with dyslexia, our commitment is to provide individuals with opportunities to live healthier, happier, and more connected lives. Through our range of tailored services, including coaching, learning and development programs, consultancy, and training, we are helping dyslexic individuals, businesses, and organisations to better understand and support their dyslexic employees. So if you're looking for insights, inspiration, and expert advice on dyslexia and how you can provide inclusive practices and environments, then head to rethinkdyslexia.com to find out more, or book your free consultation today.
Definitely. I also my dad was also in automotive industry, so I've grown up in automotive industry, and I remember being a young teenagers. And there was this shift when you used to walk into the workshop, all the guys will look at you like saying, you're not belonging here. Like, what are you doing here? And since the very, early age, I used to think, who says so? Like, who actually determines who's belonging to some places or not? They're conventional things. Pink is for girl, blue is for boy. It was always something that struck me. And I thought, you know what, I hope that I have the possibility one day to change that. And as life throw things at you, coincidentally, when I met my husband, he was a mechanic. So and I thought, oh, wow, I could actually unpack this a little bit more. And then again, coincidentally, I had a Down syndrome brother, which is, when we're talking about disability, is always cute when they're little, but then when they're grown up, they're facing really big challenges. And again, for Ricardo is 50 now. For me, when we started, he was only 30. And I thought, how can we actually give him a meaningful life, like be part of something? And so we decided to create our own business to give him the opportunity to be part of it. And in his own way, he thrived and he contributing a lot to us. And then from that, like I said, that was my purpose, creating that inclusive workplace. And what I would like to see from now is actually the big talk, which is we need to change the way we actually think about workplace. We need to unpack this and come up with a better, say probably not a better workplace, but we need to just keep up with the time. Yeah, like whatever used to work 20 years ago, it can't be used today. And this is, I think, the difficulty for small businesses. We keep tapping into the same pool of candidate when we're excluding like probably 4.4 million candidate that possibly they could be your employees. So I would like to really achieve that.
So how do you think we can support, especially I think sole traders or small business, because you and I both know that we are the jack of all trades. We are doing everything in our businesses. So how do we create the space for employers to have the capacity to think, okay, there's an untapped workforce that I could leverage here? And also how, what are some thoughts for them around it's not so scary after all? And we know you're busy, because I think time is a huge factor, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Time is a huge factor. But you say something to me in our previous conversation, which is, it's always a good reminder. We need to really tickle into the curiosity of small businesses. And if you look in the dynamic of a small business, as you said, we're wearing multiple hats. Sometimes the time is actually the big factor. So if I would have a toolbox ready, so when I have the candidate coming in because I'm tapping into a recruitment agency, and they say to me, look, you got 4 potential candidates, but they can't do maybe the normal working hours, which is 40 hours per week. But would you rather to give it a go? And one of the things that I'm always saying, even when I do coaching to small businesses, is you need to really equip yourself with the knowledge. Once you really know what neurodiversity is or what diversity could be in a workplace, you're already starting with a lot of those myths and misconceptions that can actually sort of fade away. Because as you know, there is a lot of expert. Google is one of those really powerful tools, but sometimes it actually could be a big curse, because if you don't know what to Google it, you can actually get in information that can only scares you. So I think it's just creating that synergy between providers like you that have the knowledge to equip the candidate to be actually workplace ready. And then you have programs, which is, I will unpack it with you later on. So we're doing this My Career Portfolio, which is actually empowerment and also skills for students from school or even young individual that want to enter the workplace. And then on the other end, you need to have a support for small employers. That could be done by, say, business chambers, or it could be from ACT government or federal government or local governments. If you do creating templates that an employer can dig it in, and a little bit of directory where, if I do encounter in this situation, who can help me if an employer comes to me and he says, look, I'm really, keen to work, but unfortunately there is some stuff that it triggers me. So as an employer, the only things you see is only red flags, yeah, because you're thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder what it is. And then it starts creating that sort of like a vicious circle where the candidate doesn't want to disclose his ability or disability because he feels like I'm going to be judged and I'm going to be penalized. And then on the other side, you have the employer that he thinks all this misconception or, red flags that in the end is only about creating tools for me to operate in well. So I love your work because sometime I think what we need to do is, this is from a small business operator, I would like to have the resources available that I can tap it in, and I know that a professional can give me that guidance that would take away probably, not probably, 75% of my anxiety, knowing that I got a support. So I think it's important to create a resource available to all of it.
Got so many ideas running through my head.
You are important.
And I think it's a really exciting space to be in, and I think we're on the cusp, but it's also really tiring because it feels like change is so slow. And getting people to see that you're going to create an amazing resource in the programs that we've been running. It's trying to educate people without them feeling like it's all too much. And that's really hard.
It is hard, but I think, look, and I'm always starting from the basic, an honest conversation. So this is what sometimes I feel this provider are missing the point, because when you go into an employer and you keep selling it as a selling point, you need to open up your space and be more diverse because, let's talk about it. Neurodiversity is actually, they can bring more skills and more assets to your business. They can contribute in higher places. But reality is, Shae, that sometimes it's not one rule fits all. And if I don't know how to equip that candidate to be a good employee and part of my team, I compromise the health and well-being of all the other team members. And you might lose in some sort of really upskills technician because you didn't include them into the conversation. So it's, it's like a little bit of a web. It's not just about the employer making the decision to be more inclusive. It's about give me the resource to be more inclusive. And then how can I actually train my team to be inclusive? Because I decide that. Is all my other guys on board?
And it's interesting you say that because we see all these jobs advertising for neurodiversity and neuroinclusion, and we want people with disabilities. And, there's that paragraph down the bottom of please reach out to us if you've got a disability or a difference. Yeah, what we see is that this recruitment process is pretty good, but then they get into the job and the manager hasn't been trained on how to support them. And then it all starts to fall apart within the team for the person that was hired. And then you've got expensive performance management issues, or someone gets terminated within the 6-month probation. But I think if you think of it from a team perspective, like you were saying, and if we look at it from what are the strengths within our team and what is that individual bringing, and you're able to have those open conversations when a new employee starts, regardless of being neurodivergent or different in a non-neurotypical way.
Absolutely.
Then we can start to, I think, improve workplace culture and have those conversations that build trust and psychological safety within a workplace, big or small. Because if we don't have that, then it all falls apart.
And, I might be controversial now to say this, but I'm always starting from this point. Like when we're talking about neurodiversity and be more inclusive in a workplace, there is always 2 categories. You got corporates and you got private small business enterprise. Now, when you're talking about corporates, and I know they're doing the right thing and, they want to be inclusive and everything, but I can guarantee to you that 75% is only ticking the box and just be more inclusive. And sad to say, but unfortunately we know that for a neurodiverse and and sometimes even for an introvert neurotypical, when you're talking about a small business, is actually the best environment for them because it can give you that growth in career. Now, saying, for example, I've seen multiple people, I don't know, saying, I'll give you a classic example, they might going into employment agency. The employment agency is sort of matching the employer, usually is a club, a big club. So you're seeing this individual that they're dealing with a disability, physical or mental or, invisible disability, get hired, and then there is not really a progression in career. So I just tick the box and then I abandon you. So when the small businesses actually can give you that career progression, and this is something that I'm quite passionate about it. It's not just about ticking the box. I need to just equip the individual to be part of the workplace and have ambition. Because if you don't have ambition, really, like for me, cleaning glasses all day long, I'm going to lose interest, especially for a neurodiverse individual that his brain is ticking 10 times faster than a neurotypical. They need to be stimulated. They need to build their confidence. They need to have that skill development. And if I don't offer that as a small, as a workplace, I will lose that candidate. And this is not a surprise that it was actually stats coming out that in ACT we had 200 people employed with neurodiversity, and absolutely nearly none actually completed 12 months in the same workplace. Because again, we're not stimulating them. And it's all about creating that next step. So you're coming in, saying, for example, I have a neurodiverse employee as an apprentice. He started as an apprenticeship with us. And every week we're trying to add a little bit more to his portfolio to challenge him and to just give him that possibility of creative thinking. So now, okay, Raffy, you gave me this one to do. I don't know what I have to do. So let's unpack it. But again, Shae, I have the passion to do it because this is a passion of mine personally as well. Many other businesses that I have maybe the same passion. So for me, is actually creating that resources there for them to say, look, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. This is all the templates you can actually choose. This is all the providers you can tick it into. If you have, saying a particular case of dyslexia, I can offer you, this is the specialist that can put in place a system for you to keep up that employment in the long term. And at the moment, that's what we're missing. We miss the action. It's all about the bureaucratic side of it and ticking the box. And then we're not really doing nothing to empower these employers to be more inclusive.
Yeah, and I think, the research I've done, managers felt overwhelmed because it's just another thing to add to their list and that they feel like they've got to know everything about all the different neurodivergences and, what can I say and what can't I say, and am I going to offend someone? Am I not? Am I being too direct or not direct enough? And so it can feel overwhelming for a manager or for a small business. So I think, you're right. And if we had tools and resources that explained, this is generally, because I find that it's really hard because we look at organisations talking about neurodivergent strengths at the moment, and it sometimes can pigeonhole people. The autistic person is happy just to sit on the process line because it's ongoing. There's not much change, and they just can do just one thing, and that's but not all autistic people are like that. So I think it's being able to give resources to give a general view of how you can support someone. And then what were we talking about before we switched on the recorder was it comes back to empathy and just being a good human being.
Yes. And this is one of the things that, it's still bizarre that 2024, we still are talking about, how to be more inclusive, but this is actually a human right. You need to accept people for what they are, regardless if they from a disability spectrum or they're neurotypical, everybody's got his own different personality and different background, race, for example, even me, English is my second language. So I need to find people that be able to accept me in order to succeed. Because if every second you would say to me, sorry, what was that? So what did you say? You're just crushing my confidence, and I'm not going to achieve nothing, and you're going to lose me because I don't feel comfortable to work with you. Same things is when we're talking about neurodiversity. Like every candidate that he passed through my program, it's different. It's not one rule fits all. I need to really put myself into the things and say, I want to learn about you. I want to make you feel comfortable. So you talk and you tell me. So I was mentioning before about my portfolio career. So my portfolio career, it's actually born out of that frustration, because I used to see kids coming from work experience through our workshop. And the first things they would have said to me was coming in and say, sorry, I can't do that because I'm not able to do that. Or my brains is not built to do that. And I used to think, wow, that's true. And I'm very happy for your honesty to share that with me. But did we actually shield these kids too much of concentrating too much on their limitation instead to actually tell me what's your ability and what's your strength? Because we all work differently. So my portfolio career is a 12 weeks program where I'm actually sit down with the kid, and we're building, like, in the end, you will actually have a physical portfolio with your tax file number already registered, your interview, your resume, and we're building a little bit of a life manual. I'm always saying to them, be really, really proud of who you are and what you do. And I'm starting with my own self journey. Like, my limitation is language, like English is my second language, so I can make mistakes most of the time. Then I'm saying I'm a female in an automotive industry. I have to face a lot of challenges, and still, as of today, even simple stuff. The bathroom is only suitable for boys, not for girls. So, I'm always got those. And again, you're empowering them to say, when you go into an interview, don't go there with your manual saying, sorry, I can't have a loud music. I can't really answer the phone. I can't do this. Let's build that little bit of a sandwich effect. Tell me what you can do. Tell your employer that you are spot on in doing like social media because this is your passion, and every young people is actually very tech savvy. Yeah. So people like me that would benefit so much out of it. So tell me everything that is good with you. I'm a good team leader. I can actually glue and bond with everybody. I follow direction to the T. I want to have everything in writing. Once you're creating that space and you're accepting their instruction, as an employer, it's much easier, because I would be like, oh, easy. John wants just to have everything in writing, and he doesn't want to look me on the face and have a confrontation with me. And it's easier for me because it's already done. So every morning I repropose you the same piece of paper. And guess what? All that diversity is actually creating a stronger team, because everybody looks with a different lens, and it actually boosts your productivity, to be honest. You can see people really going.
And I think you need that for everyone. Like, if your employer said to you when you first started, well, you were able to say, this is how I love to work. And so in my book, we've got a framework or a kind of tick sheet. And it's not just about the neurodivergences. This is how I like to work because I need to pick my child up at 3:30 after school. Or I like to listen to the instructions and then I need them in an email so I can cross-check that what I've heard is correct. Like, multiple things that it's not just for a neurodivergent, but is really helpful for everyone. And then I think you're looking at universal design principles where English is a second language, someone that's dyslexic, someone that's, has a mental health condition or is exhausted because they're parenting and caring for someone who's sick. All these strategies are in place. And so your workplace is just glowing because everyone's able to work at the pace or the speed or with the information that they need.
Yeah. And I think it's all about, Shae, adjusting the terms and the way we actually recruit and we're doing business. Same, for example, I'll give you another example. If you look in many of automotive advertisement, when they're just looking for a mechanic, every second one has their must-have driving license. does it? Not really. Like seriously, if I think about, my kid, he's 14, he goes down to the workshop and do work experience. He doesn't have a license, but he can actually change an oil. He can actually fix brakes. So is it really necessary for me to ask if you got a driver license? I can go around it. If I need to test drive that vehicle, somebody else can do it for you. You can still be a very effective team member, even if you don't have a driver license. But the moment I put that word in there and saying, you need to have a driver license, I'm already losing 40% of people because maybe they don't have a license. And especially when we're digging into neurodiversity or disability, they might not jump in at 16 to get a license because they might get that later on in life. So, and again, I'm penalising 40% of the candidate just because I phrased that ad wrong.
Yes. And I could spend hours with you talking about it.
Likewise.
I saw one the other week that was really, really good. They had the job ad and then they had the video talking about the job ad and the job itself. And they really were showing inclusion and diversity. And I was thinking, if I was looking for a job, I would want to work there. I can't remember who they were, but it stood out. And it's one of the only ones I've seen ever that's done that kind of mixed method approach to a multi-sensory, multimodal approach to recruiting. And I think that's what we need to go. We need to be looking at, and it is inclusive and diversity is, the driver's license. You don't have to be neurodivergent not to have a driver's license. It could be anyone that they could be knocking out of the ballpark.
And I think they are the conversation for, and this is what I'm trying to advocating for, on a different level. And this is more with protocol and regulation we have there. So if you look in, saying Work Health and Safety Act, Disability Act, Human Rights Act, they're very broad. And when it comes down to employment, for a small employer, it's actually like a big headache because sometimes I need to, like you said it before, the way that I speak, the way that I train my team. And I don't have to be just responsible for myself, but even for my manager or my foreman or the floor manager. So you need to have a restructure of those acts because when we're talking about people with different backgrounds or different needs, there can't be one rule fits all. So I need to be able, as an employer, to say to someone, I'm sorry, but the automotive workshop is not suitable for you for multiple reasons, and not be ashamed that I've been discriminating this person. Because, one of the things is like we're always saying inclusion, but we need to really be capable to shift the things, what the employer does and what the actually requirements for the industry are. Sometimes are different.
So how do we empower employers to feel it's okay to have those conversations? We've had an example of a client where, they actually weren't, their safety was at risk because they couldn't follow the instructions to keep safe.
Yep.
So that client got moved into a different role that's more appropriate. But sometimes I think people are so fearful that I'm going to be discriminating. I'm going to look like I'm discriminating. I'm going to look like I don't care. Are there any thoughts around how small business can go about having those vulnerable conversations? And
I think it's coming down to, again, you see the big recruitment agency just, broadcasting all the benefits, but there is never really the risk involved with each particular industry. And the same things like, and this is what part of empowering individual with a neurodiverse background to be workplace ready is actually to talk to them about it, because sometimes they don't know what is involved in my work health and safety policy manual. So I need to be able to tell them and say, look, realistically, the workshop is very noisy. So maybe that's not for you, but what I can offer you is maybe a spare parts interpreter, which is you are in the office with me and you're ordering parts for the guys. So it won't be that confronting for you, and it will be a safe place. So again, it's all coming down to be honest and have like that open conversation. And I think if at the bigger level, we started polishing those acts and be more inclusive in that wording, employers will feel a little bit more protected, because then, you got, as you said, am I feel like that I'm discriminating this person because I'm not taking it on? No, I'm just be honest. If you can't wear, saying steel cap shoes because they're too heavy for you and the sensory side of it doesn't permit you to wear those shoes, unfortunately, the work health and safety is a requirement for me, because if something happened to you, you're not protected by the work compensation. So it's that formal approach. And that's why I'm very keen to really push the customized employment, because that's when you can actually be very upfront, listen what their needs are, and then you can actually make a really strong offer saying, look, this is not for you at the moment, but however, I can adapt to my workshop to do something else with you. Would you like to do that?
I think it's such a nice way of working, and we've been so entrenched in the industrial industry, 9 to 5. Do you know, a recent employer I worked with had a clock on, clock off in an office in the late 2018s, 19s,
Yeah.
and it's like we're not in that environment anymore. And so it's empowering employers. And I think COVID's been really helpful in when starting to shift everyone's thinking that actually we can do things so much more differently and be so much more productive and have such better work-life balances.
Absolutely. And if you want to be a good leader, it's all coming down to respecting everybody regardless what it is or what they do. And one thing that we really, pride ourselves of it, it's our open door policies really work, because if I have, and this is regardless if a neurodiverse space or neurotypical employees, they can come to us and say, look, you know what, seriously, the childcare is cost me too much. I really need to knock off at 3:30 a couple of days a week, and that will help me dramatically. And I'm thinking, does it really cost me nothing? Really? Why wouldn't I do that as a leader? That person, just because I said yes to that, that would give back to me 10 times that little, leeway that I give them. And it's all about creating that synergy and strong bond that a good leader has to create that. So if we want to move forward in a workforce, we need to really change the way the workplace operates for everybody, regardless which background you're from.
I think small business are in a powerful position to lead the change.
We are. We just need to, and I think we will be very silly if we don't take on what we learned from COVID. So we actually had a different dynamic from that, and we should be able to mold that to create a different workplace. So the 8 to 5 doesn't work anymore. The 9 to 3:10 school doesn't work anymore. So we need to really readjust and change, because that's progress. So if we want to be a very progressive country, we need to start from the basics.
Well, I feel like that's a really nice way for us to wrap up this podcast, and hopefully I can have you on again, because we touched on so many different things, and I think I'd love to have you back on when your toolbox is at next stage of either testing or launching, so we can talk through it and support it going live so that workplaces have some additional resources to help.
Love that.
Because there's no point reinventing the wheel. If someone's doing this great work that you're about to do, then we should be jumping on board to help solopreneurs and small to medium businesses in being more inclusive, which they all are trying to do, but we can all support in.
We can all support each other, and it's all about collaboration. I love collaborate with you. I learned so much from you and all your podcasting too. It's really eyes-opening, and you're thinking always the next step. You add in a little bit more. So, I'm very grateful for what you do.
Oh, thank you, Raffy. I'm very grateful for you and what you're doing. It's really exciting to hear. And the ACT and Canberra are very lucky to have you as one of their leaders. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, and I look forward to us chatting again.
Will do. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. If you haven't done so already, make sure you sign up to our mailing list so you can keep up to date with everything we are doing at Rethink Dyslexia. So head to rethinkdyslexia.com.au, and don't forget, if there's anything you heard today that was distressing, you can contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.
Oh, yeah.